Lesson we'll be covering the Hackerrank easy rated algorithm called Beautiful Days at the Movies. So this question goes on to explain that someone thought it'd be fun to find the difference between a number and its reverse. Meaning if you took 12 and reversed it, the reverse of 12 is 21, and the difference between those is the absolute value of the subtraction. So 12 minus 21, the difference between them is 9. 120 reversed is 12, and their difference is 99. So on and so forth. So they figured they'd actually do something with this number and decide that the difference between a number and itself and its opposite, or its reverse, if that number is divisible by a specific number, then they'll consider it a beautiful day. And in this problem, we are given a range of days from I to j in an array, and a specific number k. K is our divisor, and we will divide the differences between the number and its reverse by k for the range of I to j. Take a second to read through the problem. Let that sink in. Think about it a little bit. I'm sure just saying it doesn't really, or just hearing it doesn't really resonate clearly. But if you take a second to think about it, I'm sure you'll start to understand. So really, just to reiterate, we've got our integer I. I is an input. It's the starting of the array that we'll be dealing with, the range of numbers. J is the last day that we'll be dealing with. It's the end of the array, end of the range of numbers. And K is the divisor. And these are the sample inputs we'll be working with: I of 20, J of 23, and K of 6. So let's go ahead and hop over to Replit and start to get to work. So I've transferred all the information over. I've got the function written out. So what do we need to do? We need to find the number of perfect days. And there's really two ways to do that. You could add the perfect days to an array and find the length of that array, or you could use a counter. We're going to use a counter just because I'm in the mood for a counter, and I like it right now. So we'll go ahead and set our counter equal to 0. And then what do we want to do? We want to loop through the integers in the range of I to j and divide that number by k. And if that number is divisible by k, we will want to keep track of that. So first things first, you need to find the reverse of each number. But I think we could start by writing the conditional statement. So if n minus its reverse modulo k equals 0. So what does this mean? This is essentially what we are looking for. So we know that we'll be working with a range, and n will represent every number in our range. And range in this problem meaning 20 to 23. So our first n would be 20. We'd want to take 20. We'd want to subtract the reverse of 20, which is 2. And we'd want to divide that by k. And if that's equal to 0, we want to counter plus equals 1. And that's it. So that will give us our counter, and counter will solve our problem for us. So we'll print counter at the end. In Hackerrank itself, of course, we'll return that. And that will provide the answer, but that's what we'll work with for now. We'll print counter. But so that's what the end of the problem will be. What in this line of code are we currently missing? Well, we're missing n and we're missing reverse. So let's go ahead and establish our n, and we'll establish our n in a loop, which is a range loop. We'll do for n in range I to j. We actually need to do j plus 1. because we need to include that 23. If we just went up to 23, 23 would not actually be evaluated in the loop. Only 21 would be evaluated, just how Python works. So we want to include j plus 1 as the end of our range. So there we go. We've got n. Now we need reverse. How would we get reverse? So again, what is reverse? Reverse of 20 would be 2. So first things first, we have an integer, and you can't really just take an integer and flip it. You could maybe split it. You could take a string, you could split it, and then reverse it. So we're going to take that approach. First things first, let's establish our reverse variable. And first step would be to take our n and turn it to a string. Now you want to establish the variable, because if you just did this line right here, string of n, well then you've just changed n to a string. And you couldn't do n minus itself. Well, you could, but you just wind up with 0. So we want actually 2 different integers. We want 2 different variables that we will subtract. So we establish the variable of reverse. We'll first set it to a string. Ooh, sorry about that. And let's just go ahead and print it. Print rev. Won't really show up great in our console. It doesn't give us the quotes to show that it is a string. But if we go ahead and do type reverse and print that, that should print string, 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 and that's what we get. Okay, so we don't need type. Get rid of that. And just know that we are currently working with a string at this point. Referencing line 9. So we've got it set to a string. What would we do next? We would take reverse, and we want to print the reverse of it. And a good way to do that is just use the, I guess this is like array syntax. Even though you're not working with an array, you can actually treat the string like an array and use this syntax, and this will give you the reverse. So now that we have reversed the string, let's go ahead and print it. See if we're getting what we want. Great. 20 turns to 2, 21 turns to 12, 22 stays as is, 32 or 23 goes to 32. And what's the last step? So we need to subtract reverse from n, right? And currently n is 20. Okay, let's do our first loop for our first n. N is 20. Our first rev is 0, 2. You subtract 20, or you subtract 0, 2 from 20, and you get 18, right? Well, not necessarily, because this is still a string. It's in string form. 20 in string form, and then the reverse of 20 in string form is 0, 2 in the string. So if you tried to subtract the 2, you would get an error in your console. Another way I could have done this is just to do that and show you the error, but I chose to walk you through it. So in this case, we'll just go ahead and take rev and set it to the integer of rev. And again, we can go ahead and print it, but it's really going to show the same way. It's not going to give us any indication that the type has changed unless we go ahead and we do the type function. And there you go. Every time we loop through, we are getting an integer. So we can get rid of type, get rid of that parentheses, and we can actually comment out all of this code and turn it into a one-liner. Why do we turn it into a one-liner? Because that is the industry standard. You should turn as much as you can into one line of code as long as it is still clearly understandable. So we can actually consolidate all of this into one line of code. We'll start from the beginning and work out. So first step was to take n and make it a string, and then go ahead and reverse that. And then what do we do to all of that? We turn it into, we turn it into an integer. And let me just check myself. That should be good syntax to do it all in one step. We'll go ahead and delete all these commented out lines of code. And then just to double check our work and make sure it is functioning properly, we'll go ahead and print. Perfect. Rev is showing exactly as we want it to. So we can now go ahead and delete our print. We will now uncomment this work because we've done the rest of the question already. Oops, apologies. We do need to, however, move this over to get it into our loop. And we will back our counter out. We're getting 0. That means I've got an error somewhere. Let's see what's going on. Let's print counter here. Nice, right? Possibly this is, oh yes, that's our issue. PEMDAS is our issue here. Yeah, sorry about that. Just PEMDAS. You need to make sure that you are finding the difference of these before you're doing the modulo operation on them. So good thing to keep in mind, a mistake that I'm sure we will all run into accidentally at some point in the rest of our careers. But so great. At this point, we have the print working inside of the loop, so it's going to print the counter within the loop itself. We actually don't need that. We just need the final value of a counter. So we can pop it out here. And we will go ahead and copy and paste this over to Hackerrank. We can do our loop there, set the variable there, indent our if condition, put the counter within the if condition, and then here we'll change print to return. And maybe we can leave those parentheses, but proper syntax would be to remove them. And we're running our sample test cases currently. Just give my computer the seconds to load. Okay, there we go. We passed both sample test cases. Let's go ahead and submit the code. And awesome, we passed all test cases. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it's clear. If you have any questions about any of these steps, go ahead and pop them down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and hit the like button, and of course, subscribe to the channel. We are always posting new algorithm walkthroughs, and hope we helped you solve this problem. So thanks for watching. Go ahead and have a great day.